Unscripted.
Unscripted.
Raw. It's unscripted.
This is Outrun Show Raw.
Raw, and on the Outrun Show, we are talking about our preferred platforms for streaming or viewing parkour videos and the different faux pas, potentially, of the...
A strong request.
Strong request
from the Outrun team.
From the Outrun team on content. A special request. And our training topic today is winter training. So for the people who, live really far up north.
Who experience winter.
Yeah, or the people who experience winter all year are like, what? That's everyday training. This is your episode. Noise? Do you have anything for me, Justin? Oh, that's good. I like that. I'm thinking we're trying to find a really good ASMR.
No, don't say that.
No?
I hate when people say ASMR. That's what you're gonna get.
That's right.
Crinkles, nail taps.
Really?
Yeah, it always
like packaging.
All ASMR always has a little.
Oh yeah, you've got
tapping, little feet running across the roof.
Yeah.
Dude, I swear I had ASMR in my house, stuck in my house once.
That sounds like a ghost.
Because my family's gone. When your family is present, or your roommates are present.
Last night.
This is a year ago or maybe two. Everybody assumes that every sound is being made by the other person, so there's no question about sounds. And my family was out of town, so it was just me alone in the house. And so then every sound that I don't make, I'm like, what's making that sound? Right? You just need one other person in the house to feel comfortable with just about any sound.
It's true. You're like, somebody else is here. That explains why
or a cat.
Scraping.
Yeah, or a pet. But I don't have the pets.
Last night, actually, I was sleeping, and it's probably 1 a.m. or whatever, so I'm not actually sleeping, I'm reading. And then, I hear, the dishes go, and I was like, it's a cat. And then Carly looks over at me, she, rolls over, and she's like, I was like, fine, I'll go check it out. Oh my god.
She thought maybe a thief had come in to do the dishes.
Well, yeah, I'm like, let him.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you going to take, the TV? At least do the dishes before you leave.
Right.
Least you could do.
Common courtesy.
Yeah, common courtesy. If you're going to steal, at least leave the place nicer than you left, when it arrived.
So I thought there was a mouse in the house. And I heard a little,
Your house?
clicking. Yeah, I learned about all these sounds that happen when no one's there. Yeah, my house. My house is newer, and I was like, oh man, there's a mouse in here or something? And it was because, there was a sink upstairs with a drip, and then the way the plumbing worked is that it just, the water would drip through the pipes, but it came through the center of the house and by the drywall, so I just heard the tick, tick, tick. But it was really just water, draining from the sink, and I thought for sure there was a mouse in the wall. It drove me up the wall. And then...
So you sleep it with, super dead quiet in your room?
Yeah, I do. I don't have any sound or light.
Yeah, white noise machine, man.
Yeah.
That would have helped. And then I've also found we have a little, beta fish, that fish just, tosses rocks and digs in things. So I click, 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 click. And I was like, what is... And then the fish is just digging in. It's like little fish just digging in.
A lot of noises that go on that you don't pay attention to throughout the day.
Definitely on exercise and mindfulness. So we're talking about where we get our parkour content. Where do we get our streaming content? Where do we get our what platforms we use?
Yep.
And what's the content that we go for? And we were just about in a very an argument about what we were going to talk about for feedback on that to content creators, and that's when you guys showed up. So.
Mm-hmm. What's your? Because I think you two definitely. This is not an insult. In fact, I'm jealous. You two definitely watch more TV than I do. I just don't have the attention span for it, or I'm like, I could be playing video games instead. And so I usually do that.
You want to do streaming services?
Well, let's start with that.
Okay. It's tough. We're talking about TV shows.
Yeah, we're talking about series.
First.
Yeah.
Before platforms for parkour. I think it's hard to beat HBO right now.
Yeah.
HBO be killing it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also
Yeah.
gonna say HBO. Although I just feel like I need such a palate cleanser. There's so much emotional, and psychological
HBO's
recovery.
Like
Dark.
It's very deep and
Yeah.
dark right
Dude, it's
now.
just
on all
like
of its
heavy.
platforms.
It's like you
There
better
go, that's
have
the better one.
Yeah, you better have had like dinner. You'd be up on your sleep. You just gotta watch at the right time of day for what show it is.
Oh man.
Man, it's not that Lovecraft County. You Raised by Wolves. You got Westworld. You got GOT in the past,
When
right?
you used to subscribe to HBO now just for Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Like that
Yeah.
was the only reason you were paying $15 a month just for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was worth it.
But that's
It was until
Yep.
it's tough. The content that comes out on it is so good. That everything else just feels like filler content because Netflix is just like ambient noise content for the most part. There's a few shows on there that I really can get into, but the production quality of HBO that's beyond cinematic
Yeah.
production quality just taints everything.
Yeah, it's quite literally home box office. I feel like
Absolutely.
it's like Sunday night. Better get ready.
And their series are like movies, but there's
Yep.
8 to 12 episodes.
Yep.
yeah, they're like an hour and 10 a piece.
It's
each episode.
amazing, and I think that just let's use that to bleed into talking about the divergence or different purposes of content that's even out there on social media or on in other sources where it's more procured. Yeah.
Curated?
Curated. That's what I'm looking for. Curated. It's also procured, but then it should be curated first.
Yeah.
So that is that you can kind of go for really quality content, or you can go for the volume of content, or you can go for speed. And I think it was Gary Vee or somebody like that called that out on social a little bit ago. And I think that that's kind of like you have those are your major levers when doing content at scale, meaning putting stuff out enough that has an impact on your audience. So HBO is definitely the like quality right there.
Yeah.
Like they could
That's
wait.
what they aim for.
Yeah, they aim for
They
that.
do
Like,
wait. Like Westworld, you wait 3 years for the next season. So
Yeah.
who's that in the parkour community? Because I would have to say that's probably Store at this point, just because the production quality
Yeah.
is really good, and there is a lot of little content that comes out of them. But
But they're usually clips of their higher
bigger
quality
pieces,
stuff,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're slices of a longer video that they've just highlighted one clip, which is a really fantastic strategy, by the way. If you're like a budding parkour athlete and you're like, I recognize that putting content out is like the pinnacle of what I need to be doing right now if I want to make it. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So filming long format content and then slicing it up and posting like one line from a longer video each day is a great way to do that. And yeah, I think Store does a fantastic job of doing that.
I've also seen Daryl do that a lot too, because he puts Daryl Stingley puts effort into the quality of content, a lot of effort into the production quality. It's actually pretty high for what's oftentimes shot as gym stuff, where there's not like a special. He's not like going to Hong Kong to shoot something, right?
I think it is Daryl's gym stuff. It has like the best. They look the best from like when you watch other people do clips in the gym. It's always like very. The moves are impressive, but the angle, there's nothing cinematically that's pleasing, right? It's the movement itself. But Daryl's, whoever's filming for him,
Shooting for him, yeah.
He's like Mel. I think Mel's doing his shooting, and he's
just-
got like one or two other guys. But they're like the way they move with him, and they're obviously using a gimbal, but the angles that they choose when they film, everything looks crisp. I love it.
yeah, it looks like he's choreographed and practiced
Yeah.
his moves over and over again.
Rather than
Whereas
just being
I
like, hey,
feel
film this for me.
Yeah, most of the time when I'm going outside and I'm training or filming an Instagram clip, it's like I'll see it, I'll like try to guess how many times it's gonna take me to get it the way that I would deem acceptable, and it's usually 3 times, and I'll do it the first time and be like, okay, this is the second one, and I'm not doing it after this one. But Daryl feels like there is a perfectionist in him that like just does not accept any out of place positioning, because when you watch him, like it's just the whole swing, right? Everything's in place and everything looks good, and you can pause it at any moment and be like, screenshot.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Daryl's Instagram clips and his content.
And then he'll repurpose, like he'll put different music over the same content. So really, I don't know what the overall strategy is, but it seems to be something like releasing a video and then splicing different parts of the video up and telling the story about where it came from. And sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. There are great stories behind some of our shots and the work that is done in parkour, and it's just not, you don't present that. It's kind of like almost not spoiled, but it's just like you miss an opportunity to tell a real story behind what you've created by just flash in the pan, but you put so much effort into it, right? So there's an opportunity there. So that's also, those are also quality, and I think that's the repurposing of quality. I think those are really good examples, both for offshore and onshore. Then the next thing is
Quantity.
Yeah, quantity. Your
y-axis.
Yep. You have speed too. So quantity or volume, right? So that's a lot of content, right? I still feel like Store puts a lot of content on, right? Like their films are not short.
No, they're not. But it also gives them a lot to like splice from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you have an hour-long, highly edited and polished, video with really great stuff in there, you can.
Yeah.
And you get that. You get both the speed, right? I feel like speed is maybe your z-axis.
Z-axis.
Because it can apply to both. You can have low quality, really quick speed, and you can have high quality and a lot of speed as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's just a matter of how you're breaking it up. But yeah, I feel like right now the store is killing it.
Yeah.
In terms of the content,
Yeah.
both quality, speed, and quantity as a result of where they are. They're hovering right in the middle of that XYZ graph.
Yeah.
The other person who's doing a lot, where I would say it's more Netflix style, is Ryan Ford, and then Taylor. Both of them are just like every day on my feed, and it's usually very short clips. There's not a great cinematic thing to it. It's not even geared to be impressive. It's more, I feel like, content to be used and to be learned from. So, but he does that a lot. I am like very impressed with how just dedicated Ryan is. Like, there's just always clips coming out, and Olaf jumps in on this too. So Olaf is, his Instagram feed is filling up too, which I feel like that's more my style. I feel like it's probably because I trained with Ryan quite a bit, where it's like the standard for doing it perfect isn't quite there. It's just like how I feel like being proud of the movement that you've done and putting it on Instagram, and that's how I kind of feel. I just like want to record what I've done, mm-hmm. so that I can always look back through my feed and be like, oh, okay, I did that, cool.
Yep.
Because I feel like when I do it Daryl's way, it just burns me out.
It's very high level.
Like, I can't make a lot of mistakes, right? I feel like that's my main goal. Don't make mistakes in parkour. So that's why I really like, those guys are just doing really good. And then I've seen Taylor, some of her more impressive moves I've seen on like those like more generic Instagram, like people are awesome Instagrams, and she's getting posted around, and that's where that I think is beneficial. When you're just pumping out content like that, the chances of one of them just getting grabbed by those accounts and being posted on those with hundreds of thousands of followers is pretty good. So good strategies on both sides.
Absolutely.
That speed, I'd say that's like speed and maybe volume more over quality. When we say quality, we're talking mostly about production quality, cinematic. I'm not talking about quality of movement. Necessarily. I think there's a lot of people on TikTok right now that I've been looking at that are doing a really good job of just sort of giving a narrative to their training. They are, and this is something I've thought about doing, but it's basically like we should record a few of these sample examples of what the content format might be, and then release it so that people get a chance. But I think one that has an opportunity right now in Parkourdom is just recording your training and then voiceover. Because in the past we've done a lot of that in the parkour community, where
it's like a parkour unboxing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The parkour unboxing.
Movement, you're unboxing the movement.
Movement unboxing. Exactly. It's just like that. Just that. I looked at this jump here and I took this and I switched up my technique and blah, blah, blah. And even though you know that new people might not get what the heck you're talking about as far as language goes, I think it'll draw in a lot of people as to like what your thought process was when you were attempting something. Like that's something for intermediate to higher level athletes to do. And then it's it's pretty authentic, and it's also kind of a fun thing to watch. And you would learn really fast from people who are successful. using that method. So I would expect to see more of that in the future. And I recently figured out how to do that on TikTok. So maybe I'm going to do that, but it's going to be really...
Yeah, voiceover, so like a Loom style thing on...
Yeah,
on
it's
mobile.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to get started on something like that.
I figured it out. So I'll let you in. Let's get a little,
Well, just voiceover
little
or
leg
more
up.
face, because then you're adding.
No, I don't
another
want
layer
face.
of
That one
complexity.
seems weird.
Yeah, he's saying just
It'd be
voiceover.
like tiny little circle.
Just take your clips, record them, and then toss them onto a desktop and use Loom.
That's too much work.
That is a lot of work.
But it's iCloud. It's already
Dude,
on your desktop.
Some people like are taking their stuff into Premiere and editing. Like I've talked to a couple of buddies. I was like, oh my gosh,
Before
dude!
TikTok?
Like
Or
just to get to
before
TikTok, yeah,
Yikes.
they're going from like DSLR to a freaking Power
Oh my
PC,
gosh.
Premiere, and then back.
I thought TikTok was supposed to be the one that was more. Well, yeah,
Raw.
you're right. I have seen TikToks that are like
Yeah, but-
just can't be done on a mobile phone.
Right, but and sometimes they don't even look exactly like the cinematic quality or the videography is that astounding and amazing, but it's more like the effects that interrupt the feed sometimes have to be creative and they can't be common, so like everyone can't be doing them, and that's what disrupts the feed. So even if you see someone flashing text in a particular way or some odd effect like that, they may have done that in Premiere, even though it looks like it was an in-app thing, right? We've also had that trouble with like subtitles in our content and whatnot. It's just such a pain. So if you're a content creator doing stuff for parkour, videography is a very, very important skill. And there may be a unique videography skill, which is like mobile videography for social. I think that's a little different than most people right now are studying like how to make adjustments to color or add like a film grain and just like get everything perfect. But there's also that just like functional social media editing skill that is kind of like quippy and weird, but yeah, that one's
Yeah, it's its own subset of like cinematography for sure. It's like mobile, being able to film and shoot successful and viral content on a mobile that doesn't look trashy. Because right, I'm sure you've done it as well. That like you see something, you're like, oh, I can film that, and then you like try and take a picture of it, and you're like, why does mine look awful?
Yeah.
And this guy's looks cool. Same phone. In fact, my phone might even be better than his phone, and maybe he did a little bit of editing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love those clips where like it's a screen record of somebody, they take the picture, and then on their phone it's like a time lapse of them actually editing the picture on their phone and some app or something like that. They also do the same thing with like Photoshop, but there's a lot. Obviously Photoshop is very dense, but on the mobile, and so you can see, and then if you're really determined, you can follow along and pause and edit. But yeah, I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I think so. Some general tips I would say is in the beginning, like if I was going to give people advice on like building content up, I think the reason that we see like Ryan and some of the other guys be able to produce content like this is primarily because that's a flow they can get into, and they're just going to do it by default. Like some of us just have default things that we can just go into and just do. I'm not saying he doesn't work super hard at it, but I'm just saying I would imagine that he doesn't meet much resistance within himself to create that content.
Yeah, he doesn't have to wake up in the morning and be like, all right, let's do this. Come on, let's work hard today.
Yeah, it's probably not painful for him. I think he's going to do what he wants to do, and if he's doing that, he wants to do it.
But back to our original topic, which was where do we get the majority of your parkour content? Because there's a lot.
True.
It used to be back pre-2006 for YouTube, you used to have to download it directly from the forum and watch the video.
Oh,
like, wow.
way back.
I'm talking way back in the OG days. There was no YouTuber streaming platforms, so you had people would link it from like a Dropbox or something like that, and you'd have to download it and then watch it. And of course, if you had crappy internet, because everybody had crappy internet back then, you'd wait like 10 minutes for it to download, and then you'd watch it, and you'd be like, that sucked, actually.
I feel like I remember watching like, what was it? It was like Ninja Stunts or something like that. The first free running video that we saw on MySpace.
Oh wow,
That's highly possible.
I think I saw it was parkour on MySpace, but
MySpace.
I mean,
Did
it
MySpace
was-
support video?
it was very yeah.
you could do it. It's because it was HTML. You could do embedded video. You would have had to have someone hosting
Yeah, but they
it.
didn't. Yeah, they didn't host at the time.
Those people probably privately hosted that video and then just embedded it.
Yeah, and so and then right after that was YouTube, which I feel like YouTube is more like the HBO Max of parkour now, especially because they're encouraging long format videos at this point for ads and to squeeze as many ads as you can. And then Instagram's my Netflix, which is, I can just scroll forever and I'll always see something
it's just the
interesting.
volume.
Eventually you'll
is just-
stumble across something, yeah.
Yeah, Netflix is definitely the volume thing. Yeah, Instagram there's a lot of content on Instagram. It's the platform's beefed up. You've just had a ton of time for creators to sort of just put stuff on there. But there's not a lot of innovation on Instagram. And oftentimes a lot of the innovation we see on Instagram is just bleed over from TikTok right now. Like I'll see people repurposing videos on Instagram with TikTok content.
Yep.
I think that right now
That's just Instagram's whole model.
That is Instagram's model. Is like
Steal everything
hey,
from the new
another
guys.
social platform. I mean, but the truth is, like, if those other social platforms had something that was truly unique, then I mean, TikTok's probably done the best. But like Vine was like, we do video, and Instagram was like, yeah, we can do that too.
Yeah.
And honestly, I never really liked the Vine platform anyways because I was like, I want this on my Instagram, right? And it was like, okay, so your business model is like video. Instagram's like, okay, done. And now they're gone, right? TikTok's done a really good job of like providing like a culture of like
There's a
funny
culture,
satire, like, you know, this like quirky side of these videos. And Instagram's never curated that. Instagram tends to be a little bit more serious.
One of the things I think TikTok's been successful at is forcing audio into the experience.
Yes.
Instagram does not do that. But
No, the audio doesn't automatically play when you're watching a clip.
and a lot of the content just requires
Yeah.
audio. So you already have your audio on. You're much more engaged in that way. So I think that's one of the reasons that I don't think that Instagram's going to be able to replicate TikTok's success. I think the algorithm and what's being shown to you in TikTok is a little fresher, and that's also going to have an impact on, Instagram would have to change its algorithms quite a bit to adapt to that. So I would say right now for me, the content that I enjoy looking at is a mixture of, to be honest, TikTok and YouTube. I watch some longer format stuff on YouTube and mostly like insight or tutorials or podcasts or whatnot when I'm looking at like parkour and movement information. I use that for a lot of the dance stuff just because that's easier to find and break down on YouTube. On TikTok, if I'm the thing I like about TikTok is I'm seeing people I've just never seen before because the algorithm is fresh and timing mattered. There are people who are parkour athletes on TikTok that I'm finding that I just like Brazilian athletes or people in other like countries are popping up that I'm just like, wow, these guys are absolute, and girls are absolute like monsters and interesting people to watch, putting out cool content. But I've just never heard of them before. And then that's been allowed because of TikTok. What's also interesting about that is that I find myself drawn to looking at the locations in which people are training more than the actual people doing parkour. So when I watch like higher quality content stuff like Store, Daryl, anybody who's putting effort into the content quality, I'm looking at that from like the cinematic experience of like what it's like to be in view of that content, and I really sit down and like savor the artisan parkour, right? And I like that. But when I'm in
Artisan. Artisan parkour.
Artisan?
Artesian is from a well.
A well?
Watery parkour.
Water parkour? It could be like a
Artisan.
Art drops into wells.
Yeah.
Artisan.
Colin, what's the definition of artisan?
All right.
I'm pretty sure it has to do with.
You're
like,
right. It might just be like Italian springs.
Yeah, I think it's water.
But
anyway,
artisan
that's
parkour.
still
Artisan
relevant
parkour.
for Travis, though. That's still,
That's
Artesian
true.
parkour.
He does
exactly.
love his water, his earth water.
So and then when I watch TikTok, it's like, oh man, I'm seeing parkour in places I've just never seen before.
Yeah, you're right.
It's water.
But yeah, read it for me. Yeah, what's that?
Well, artesian well is one in which the water is under pressure, causing it to flow to the surface naturally.
Oh,
Cool. Glad we cleared that up.
There could be a metaphor in there too for parkour somewhere. So I like that. If you're not on TikTok streaming and do that content, you can see a bunch of like spots. And what I would point out about that is that that's interesting because oftentimes when I'm watching other social media platforms, I'm watching them for the people, but in parkour, I find myself being more interested in
Watching
the
for the location.
places.
Huh.
Yeah. I was like, holy, that's a cool spot. Like, what are they doing on that? Oh,
I
that
just-
shape is neat.
I just don't find productive content on TikTok. Like you go on TikTok when I'm like, entertain me,
Yeah.
phone, right? And there's some cool stuff that comes out, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, right? And I'll find somebody to follow. But for the most part, like, I just like want to giggle and laugh when I hop on TikTok, and then when I go to Instagram, like that's where I want to be like, whoa, that was dope, and like watch it again, save it, right? So I think part of that too is like the full screen media is just so cool.
Yep.
Right, and that's where Instagram falls shy, is they don't have full. Now they have reels, which I do enjoy watching,
stories,
but they're too short, right? They're only like 10 seconds or whatever.
The reel?
Yeah, I think reels are only 10 seconds long or 15 seconds long. Maybe.
I actually spend almost zero time in Instagram on the feed. I go through the stories, and those can
And the
end up being-
Explore page, right?
And the Explore page.
Yeah, I actually wish my main feed was my Explore page,
Mm-hmm.
and they would take all of those squares and cut the number in half, so that I can browse through. Because the truth is, like, I follow a decent amount of people, right? And I do want to see everybody's content. But if you posted something, earlier in the day, unless the algorithm's like, oh, Jesse interacts with Travis's content a lot, so let's put it at the top of his feed, I'm not going to see your stuff, right? I'm going to have to scroll for like 5 minutes before yours comes up in the chronological feed. But on the Explore page, I can see a lot more content, and so I can, scroll through and be like, oh, Travis posted something. What did he post, right? And if somebody else posts something and it piques my interest, I'll click it, like it. But for the most part, I don't like.
Hands down, Instagram should move the Explorer to the primary home.
And
That
then
should
of
be
course,
with the
because
feed
there's
for
just
that.
so much on there, they need to thin it out. Otherwise, it's just overload. But
Yeah, because now it's a horrible model because you're pulling to get that data, meaning that you have to click search and then you go in and you decide to look at that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being put in front of you, which is what TikTok is doing. The stories are really good. I love people's stories because they're trying to condense sort of their messaging. But I listen to people's stories quite a bit. One thing I didn't mention that I do that does have really cool parkour content on it, ironically, and it's tutorials mostly, is I have, of course, this sneaky Chinese TikTok. So I have the Chinese TikTok app on mine. So I have both US TikTok and Chinese TikTok. And the Chinese TikTok content for movement is broadly tutorials, like people explaining how to do movements. And it's really cool for me because I will consume like tutorials in Chinese on like how to do like vaults or how they're training parkour over there, and so that's interesting. And then they also do a really good job of there's a lot of really good movement content of both parkour, b-boy, and then like martial arts stuff that you just wouldn't get the chance to see in US TikTok. And a lot of the stuff that's really popular on the US TikTok just comes from Chinese TikTok content, like the crazy lady who does the cooking shows. It's like live anime cooking show lady where she's like,
Oh yeah.
like
throw
beating
the
up
knife in
chickens.
the air and it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen those ones.
She's been on there, and then also there's another gal who just like lives in the forest and just makes everything from scratch, and she's super popular.
Yeah, I follow one of those guys too.
So
That's
there's
pretty
a
cool.
lot. So there's goodies on there, I feel like. But YouTube, is it dead? Is it thriving? Like that was the spot for parkour, and I guess I do get some content on there, but I guess I get really burnt out by the different, what are we're seeing, cosplay parkour videos where it's just like
I think that's
Yeah.
probably what killed YouTube for me is when I stopped regularly checking my YouTube feed. Was when it was just Devin Supertramp, just Jedi parkour, Mario parkour, Assassin's Creed parkour. It was just like all these things, and those things are just like I want to play the video game. I don't want to watch, which their budgets were, I'm sure, were huge because they were going out in the desert and filming these videos. But it's like if you just had enough money to pay for a really good costume, you just found anyone who could do parkour.
Yeah.
And then your video had millions of views.
And the reality is, you can't do cool parkour in those costumes, right? Like those costumes were never designed for actually doing parkour in, because anybody that's put on one of those costumes is like, wow, this is really difficult, right? And so the movement was never like, whoa, that was super cool. Maybe every now and then there was like one or two moves that you were like, ah, that was pretty cool actually.
So I think that what I would say about this is is in this style of content, when you have someone who's like, let's throw on a Mario suit and go out and do parkour, there's a couple layers going on. It's a bit fantastical in the sense that, yeah, you get to put this outfit on and kind of live out a bit of a childhood fantasy. But there's something there's a problem with it in with the congruency, and that you have someone. It still just sort of feels like a scaled up version of someone just putting like a Superman t-shirt on and backyard wrestling, because you always still have just some person outside, like in a city, dressed weird, jumping and flipping on stuff, and you're like, okay, you're dressed like Pokemon right now, running around in a park. No matter how much money you throw at this, it's still you in a Pokemon costume in Central Park, right?
Yeah.
It's like the environment, you're not in a Pokemon world, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think there's a problem with that. Same thing with the Assassin's Creed. If you're gonna do an Assassin's Creed, Jason Paul did a video about a year ago that I think is definitely the exception to this, that I thought was done really well. Of course, probably had Red Bull budget all over it, so that's good. But it was one where he's in where he goes back to feudal Japan, and does this skit where he travels back in time and encounters these samurais and ninjas, and it is parkour people from Tokyo or Japan in it, and it was just done so well because it was set in that time, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think,
Well,
makes
the narrative
difference.
was he doesn't belong in this time. He's found himself in this time somehow, and here it is. So yeah, the narrative made sense when you watch it. Whereas if he just put on a samurai costume and was jumping around, you'd be like, eh.
Like where we talked about that with the rules for competitions, right?
Yep.
Can you bring the katana to the style comp thing?
That's what it really feels like to me. It's like if you just did the moves by themselves, would you have gotten so many views? It's most certainly not. So you're just using the prop of the costumes to get yourself more views and to try to make it more interesting, which is just super inauthentic.
But you could get some memedom out of that, right? I think a Donald Trump parkour inauguration would be amazing. I would laugh at that, and then or parkour. Was it Trump versus Biden parkour, right? I mean, that would be for a week. That would be funny, but that's not sustainable, scalable.
Yeah.
It's quippy. It's more that speed thing. If you run a channel like that, you're probably cranking out and that's why it works. I mean, we may have a different opinion about whether we would consume that content or not, but it certainly works. Those are hands down some of the most successful channels on YouTube and whatnot, but they're constantly getting speed because the quality is it's not as there. One thing I'd like to call out real quick that I wish we could one thing about Instagram I wish we could destroy, and this is literally might actually be ruining Instagram for me, is the parkour hashtag.
Do you follow it?
Yeah, I follow the
I
parkour
would
hashtag.
never follow a parkour hashtag.
Never follow a hashtag.
Oh my gosh!
Don't follow the outrun hashtag because that'll even ruin outrun for you.
I don't we have a pretty decent traction on outrun crew or outrun parkour as a hashtag.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you call it straight outrun, probably not very good. But man, I'm telling you, the parkour hashtag never has parkour on it.
Really?
It's just every once in a while, but usually it's just whatever is trending, because people are just like, oh, what a hashtag I should use.
Yeah.
Oh, I should use parkour because I bet people watch parkour on, you know what I mean? It's just so disconnected from actual parkour. There's rarely anything on it. It's usually just a bunch of Russians jumping out of windows. By the way, that cyberpunk Russia video.
That was pretty funny.
The Cyberpunk 2077 one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Russia
that's so
edition.
good.
Russian edition. So if anybody, we should definitely link that one out. It was, there's the trailer for Cyberpunk 2077, which is set in the debauchery of the dystopian futurescape, and as part of the video game. But someone got a hold of it and then edited in some of the ridiculous Russian clips that occur, and
the old school Russian clips too.
just ravaging the streets with a donkey cart or something like that. Just complete debauchery, no seatbelt car accidents, stuff like that.
Yeah. It was pretty hilarious. Very good. Love it.
Yeah. So, is there any gems for where you're going to find content right now?
Any gyms?
Gems.
Oh,
hidden gems.
Nope. I'm usually on Instagram. Usually just like to see quite a bit of it, and then some of them are my more favorite guys, like Tim Champion's pretty comment on my Instagram feed, and that guy, you could just watch his clips all day, and you could watch one clip for quite a while because his techniques, every move is so big on what he does, and he's usually innovating quite a bit. And Nate Weston does that too. So
Yeah, I think their TikToks are pretty well curated too. Like I enjoy watching some of these bigger athletes on TikTok, again because of the full screen media.
And that's usually a faster frame rate too, which I think
Yeah.
Instagram does a hard time. I feel like
Instagram does, like, when you upload to, if you're on a newer iPhone and you can do 4K, or if you're on a newer like Android device that does 4K at 60, Instagram will absolutely butcher your quality. They'll be like, oh yeah, we have to reduce it down to 10, and you're like, yeah, or 1080p, and you're like, 1080p at like 37.5 frames per second. What is this? What am I looking at right now?
Wow.
Like, why is this so awful?
If
It's-
you just had like stills that rotated every 3 seconds, it'd be beautiful.
But yeah, so Instagram definitely butchers the
It
quality, and
does.
TikTok tends to have a higher quality just frame rate, and it's a lot smoother looking. So I like following, like if I find an athlete on Instagram, then I'm like, oh, I love this athlete stuff, I'll check TikTok to see if they're on there.
Ooh, there's a
see if they
behavior
have-
that people need to know about.
Yeah. So I definitely will find, like if I enjoy watching somebody's content on Instagram, I'll just see if they post on TikTok as well, just so I can get the full immersion of the device. So
That is dope. Well, how about our training topic today? Speaking of Cyberpunk 2077 Russia edition, winter training.
winter training. Winter training is more about winter fashion. I feel like in parkour. I like it because you do get to wear different clothes. I very easy to do t-shirts and shorts for summertime, but I feel like in winter, especially in
but
Colorado.
how many people look good doing parkour in t-shirt shorts?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's rough. And like you gotta wear like skinny jeans if you want to. Especially for me, with the short little legs. Shorts. Well, that's actually I can't decide if shorts make me look taller or not, but.
Dude, if you get them real like
High
5.5
Them
inch
runner
inseam
shorts,
ones,
man.
Got another inch
3
on your
inch
height right
inseam.
there. You're a solid 5'9" at that point.
But I really enjoy winter training. Yeah, if I can get the right clothes, and I feel like shoes are always the hardest one for that one. Strikes and the typical super flat shoes have been the worst for winter training because if you get any sort of ice or snow, those shoes have no traction. So we'll try these babies here in winter. But I actually love winter training when it's not snowing. Like when there's snow on the ground, it's ice. I think it forces you to think a lot differently than you would in summer. You're obviously more cautious, but things like rails become things that you like usually avoid or have to. You just can't put weight on them. You can't swing on them. So the way you use them is always a little bit different. So I do like winter training. It's a completely different dynamic. It's scary.
it is, yeah, because there's a big extra factor
Yeah.
in there of like, will I slide and die,
Yep.
or will I just hurt? Yeah, it's true. And some people get some really creative stuff. I feel like everybody has this notion that like winter training involves a lot of like cool slides and like,
Yeah.
but it doesn't. Underneath all that snow are still rocks and nails and other fun stuff that you would normally see and avoid. So sometimes you slide and you're just like, well, I slid my thigh right into a rock. It was a great time, and then you tear up your clothes. There are some times though where you're like, oh, this is like perfect little ice patch where I can slide into a line, but that's the exception, not the rule.
I like how in winter everything sort of quiets and sort of feels like a different. This is more so in the Midwest when I would go outside. Yeah, yeah.
Introspective.
Yeah, I just would love exploring in winter. Things that would normally be like really like boring or potentially even like dirty places to go. Like when it's covered with snow, you're just like,
Looks
oh,
clean.
this is cool. Where am I? And I like to be out alone exploring in winter, which is not the safest. But I love that crisp, quiet sound. Doesn't happen as much out here. But I do enjoy it and love it. And I probably spend less time doing bigger moves and more of an exploration mode in winter outdoor training. For winter indoor training, I'm spending more time getting hot.
Yes.
Because
Like
that's
hot, like you're doing like
temperature.
aesthetic stuff, or
that too, like Justin said, when parkour fashion comes in, I'm like Derek Zoolander out here trying to like find like an asymmetrical hoodie or something where I'm just like, yeah, it's an excuse to wear like additional
It
layers.
really is an excuse, yeah.
But I really like being warm when I train because of soft tissue, tendons and ligaments. So when in the summer I just come in hot for the don't have to do much to get primed up for things. But in the winter I like to spend a lot of time in more clothes, or I used to have like a really tight schedule and then want to do like either something more power stuff like more power-based. We were doing more power-based jumps and training and in some evening classes, I would always go home, eat dinner, wait a little bit, and then I'd jump in the hot tub. And then, like, literally the class would be, or whatever training session was, like, at 6:37 at night, at, like, 6 o'clock or a half an hour beforehand, I'm in the hot tub for 15 minutes, jump out, rinse, double up on my hoodies to keep that heat, and then just come in ready to go. Like, I'd use that as a hack. Because otherwise, like, we'd be on, like, a Justin Clark warm-up, which you have daylight savings time for a warm-up too, right? So normally it's 40 minutes, but then you go daylight savings time changes, now it's an hour 40 warm-up? Or
I haven't thought about that. That is a good excuse, though. All right, after Labor Day.
Add an hour to your
warm-up.
warm-up, right. Justin is notoriously known for really long warm-ups, so can you talk about that? Because some people are like, are they not? Just like, you don't need a warm-up. I swear there's some people out there who just are saying warm-ups are not needed. If you're really awesome, you're ready to go no matter what, what.
Yes, I feel like I have to talk about this all the time, which is probably good. So when I warm up, I'm really not warming up for something special. I'm usually just doing the things that I like doing, and it takes me an hour and a half to go through stretches and basic activities just because I like doing those things. I like getting better at my warm up. And so that's usually like a lot of splits training, I feel like.
Justin's got his warm-ups down to an art.
Yeah, I don't do my warm-up and then expect that I'm going to do the moves right after, and they're going to be so much better because I spent 2 hours warming up. I just love being in the warm-up and not sitting still, really, is the main thing. I feel like everyone knows that about me. I just don't sit still. I'm always standing on something or moving. And I'm pretty sure, like, if I were to try moves without a warm-up and then I do a warm-up, I'm only marginally better because I just feel a little more energized after a warm-up. I wouldn't say that my warm-ups make me perform any better. Especially when I'm taking an hour and a half. Like, I'm almost tired at that point. So,
right, that's a lot. You need a meal in between that. I feel like yours
need a meal in between that. I'm fine.
Guilty as charged. I feel like yours is ritual. Like, when I see, I feel like I see Justin doing his little, like, hip switches in a split, and I'm like, their ritual is being performed. It has begun. And then,
It's like...
Yep.
And I'm like, this is the sound. This is Justin's calling upon the warm-up gods.
I like ritual.
It's almost like it is like you're gonna call like weather into
He's on
effect.
he's on treating.
Yeah. There you go. I think that'll help people understand.
I think I get it.
I just can't spend a lot of time doing, like, I would love to spend an hour or an hour and a half doing tricky moves and learning one certain move, but I almost always get headaches when I spend that much. So particularly on tricking, my warm up will take much longer than the actual skills that I practice.
Funny enough, when I'm doing inversion and flips, I feel like I have to work on getting blood to my head. Like, I literally have to do like a brain warm up, like a physical brain warm up.
I think that could be a good test experiment to see. Like, just do some Sudoku before tricking.
No, I mean, like, turn upside down and put blood in my head.
Literal.
I mean, literally.
Literal
Like, I'm like, okay. And
I guess
actually,
yours is a little brain warm-up too, but...
That's been
Different
my warm-up hack, because in the past I would jog or dance around a little bit, top rock being the exception, because I feel like that's just, not everybody knows it, that's a secret hack that, it's going to take some skill, but now I would top rock for warm-up almost for everything, and I could get what I would get out of, an hour and a half of mechanistic isolation warm-up in 3 to 5 minutes of top rock, and I'm ready to go, and I'm like just vibing, right? Like, my mind is there too. It's not just like the body's kind of hot and I'm like, I have to get in the mood to train. Like, you put me in that long and I'll just get sucked. If I don't get sucked into it, I'm ready to do whatever. But in the past, but more deliberately now when I'm working with students and clients and whatnot, is I try and get them to swing arms and legs in a way that just isn't like hinging at the hip or something like that, but I'm trying to get them to pull blood to the extremity. Because I think that's, again, in the winter, circulation is different. Your blood gets thicker. You actually, if you've been sitting for any amount of time, your ankles might be cold or whatever, and you've got to get that circulation to that part of the body. And hydration is another thing. Training dehydrated, I think, also is really bad for flips and twists. For me, when I train dehydrated, I do get headaches sometimes and whatnot. So hydration and then getting blood to extremities is probably the biggest thing that I tend to to change or put more of an emphasis on and building heat in winter prior to my training session.
What do you guys have a specific focus in the winter time that you're aiming for? Like, it's winter time, that means it's, it's X focus for me.
Yeah, before it was usually tricking in the winter, but I think it'll probably
tricking's primarily
indoor. It doesn't change when winter comes. Where I feel like parkour, it can't, or you have the option for it to not to change if you only train in the gym, but in summertime you are usually exploring and creating outside more. So in the past I think it was tricking. I think this winter, I think I'll start focusing a little more on dance, especially since we have a new dance floor planned in this new gym. I think we're all gonna have to show up a little bit. We're gonna have mirrors and a dance floor. I think I'm gonna have to up my game a little bit. My dance moves from high schools won't work anymore. So.
They maybe everybody. We can always just be better at now. We were talking about this yesterday, but I also had a conversation with my wife, Candy, this morning, where I was like explaining that if you don't look back on the past and say, like, looking back on the past and saying, and this has a lot to do with our like political climate right now, but looking back on the past and saying that was the best, or there is nothing more. Like, I appreciate nostalgia because I like its flavor and the feeling tones of it, but I'm not looking at the past and saying I want to go there, I was better then, in any really meaningful or changeable way. If you aren't looking at the past and seeing the room for opportunity and improvement, then I think you're stuck. You're either not self-aware or you're not growing. It's a sign of growth to look at the past and say, oh, my dance moves need an update. If you were just like, man, I wish I could dance like I could dance in high school.
Back in high school, I could dance to anybody.
You could dance
like off of everybody.
Wasn't that Uncle Rico from like Napoleon Dynamite? Back in high school, I could throw a football with that.
I was a big skin over the mountains.
So it's like, we know that guy, and no one wants to be like that. So you really should always look at yourself and say, if I don't see room for improvement, it's not hating yourself, it's just like perspective. So yes, and with the new location, performance is a big aspect. The opportunity to be in a space where you feel like you can actualize in the environment complements your abilities, and you're not like making up for it, like trying to do Mario in a city park, right? It's like the environment's propping you up in this new spot. Like, you're gonna go in it, and I'm not. You might just look good standing there getting ready to do something with the right camera in the new spot. Whereas our spot now isn't bad. People get it, but you have to do more for the video or the experience of being around you to be significant, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Justin's doing tricking. That's his winter. His usual.
No,
winter
dance.
goes. He's doing stylistic stuff, I guess is maybe a better one.
Yep.
What about you, Travis? Do you have a winter focus that you usually lean to?
I used to compartmentalize it like that. Like, okay, well, here comes winter. That means indoor. That means it's time to go through a strength cycle. But then I would quickly find myself in a mobility cycle, and it was cold, and I was like, oh, this
is
is dumb.
Mobility cycles. They're so.
Right, so I'm with you. I got rid of them. My strength days are my mobility days, and I do strength and mobility at the same time. It's at the end of squats or lifting or that type of training when things are fatigued and I'm hot, I'm warmed up and open. Then I'd go and I do my strength training at end range of motion, or my mobility at end range of motion. And I've gotten the most gains from that, consistent gains from that I can call on for a while. So I'm done with that. I'm done with strength training in periodization in that way. I'm more objective-based strength training right now. I'm not just going to do strength training to do strength training. I want to see a change in something within a 5 to 10 day period. So I approach that differently. So now I think this year my focus is on spending time doing the disciplines. I actually expect to go through a pretty big focus on, I think, laches and bar work this winter. So that's actually a very big focus of mine. And then right now I am doing some deliberate strength work because I hypothesize that muscle and tendon strength is what's really going to pay dividends for that. So I'm actually going through some like one arm shin training to build up asymmetrical strength and hanging, and going through some calisthenics pushing work in order to beef up my pressing to help with like top outs on climb ups and and muscle ups and getting on bars and stuff. So I think that's actually going to be a focus of mine. Coming in there, and then precisions. I'm going to double down on laches and precisions. We've been talking a lot about what at the core of parkour is some of these techniques that are like really speak to the nature of parkour individually, and I think laches and precisions have sort of been something that keep like being at the center of everything. So I'm going to put some special emphasis on, since I'm indoor training, right? Exploration is kind of not out the window, but it's reduced. My primary focus will probably be laches and precisions coming into winter. And it's very easy for me to find the joy in breaking right now and dance and hip hop.
So it sounds like you do compartmentalize a little bit.
Compartmentalize the objective, the emphasis of my training, but not in some sort of like global. Well, it's winter, so that means I will go through 2.5 months of back squats or something like that, right?
What's
It's more
wrong with that.
There isn't anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying like that in the past I would have felt obligated to put that cycle in and then go through, okay, well then in late spring I'm going to go through and get my splits back, and it was like these big chunky like 3-month cycles of like
where you couldn't do other things.
right.
You
I felt
self-focus
right,
on one
exactly.
thing.
I was like, I better make room because now I got to put 6 hours of strength training in, and that's what it would be for me in a week, and then maybe I'll have some time to flip, trick, jump, swing, dance. It's kind of the inverse now.
Where you're tossing it in on the peripheries where you have room for
Right.
your strength training.
And then I'll ask you a question after you tell us what your focus is going to be.
Every winter I'm definitely more of the like traditional strength training. I don't have an issue with like testosterone, so like being in the weight room helps me like, scream at the weights and get all that out so I don't scream at people.
Right.
And that's fine with me. I enjoy that. That's like I just think even if I didn't see gains from like strength and power training in a weight room, I'd probably still do it. Just because it's my time to like crank music up and just like scream at myself in the mirror, and that's enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no self-hatred there. It's quite the opposite.
I'm with you. Let's hear it for testosterone.
You're awesome. You rock, man. I lose that weight, right? Like it's I don't know. I enjoy that. It's fun. It's silly. And it also allows me, when I do come into the gym to do my more stylistic creative work, it allows me to get all that stuff out of the way. Like I'm able to really dive into the parts of my brain and my personality that are all creative, rather than having to be like, because sometimes I think, especially athletes in the winter, they're like, oh, I'm in the gym, it's time for me to hit big stuff in the gym now because I'm going to be trapped indoors, and that's definitely like a bit of a YOLO athlete like approach. And if I get all that like more YOLO stuff out of the way in the weight room, then I get to come into the gym and I'm like, hey, that's a big jump. Don't want to hit it. It's not creative enough for me, right? Like it's the difference between like the weight room is where I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I've already programmed my stuff out for, the whatever 6-week mesocycle I'm on or whatever. So I just look at it and I just go down the list and I knock my stuff out. And then you get to come into the gym and it's an open drawing board, right? With crayons and markers and pens and pencils and whatever other funky art stuff I want to play with, right? And those are obviously metaphors. I don't draw. I'm awful at it. But the gym, I get to come in and be like, today I want to use crayons. I just want to draw circles with crayons, right? And it's all out of the way. So definitely when it comes winter time, like I'm doubling down on like strength programming, but I have the benefit of being able to do that stuff at home. So I get to wake up, make my coffee, knock that stuff out of the way. I don't feel like if it did take time away from my training, I would absolutely scrap it, but it doesn't. If anything, I just get to add more time doing stuff that I love in the winter time.
It's also interesting that you were saying, I think this is both interesting and wise, that like the true like master of all arts, like old Jackie Chan style, like master would be able to sort of shift their training modalities in any environment, right? They could just find themselves in like a library and be as amped as they were in, a competition setting. But it is very wise, I think, and practical and we strive for that ideal, but I like that too, of like, this is my creative space, right? And understanding that more. It's also, I think anybody who runs a gym, works at a gym, coaches at a gym is going to get that feeling of, it's very hard for this place that I go and I work and I coach to also be a place where I train. And play.
Yep.
Because it's become work in many ways. And being able to find something that I think clicks like that's really smart, coming in and just, this is my creative space.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be wrong. You can coach a little bit, give a few tips, and get after your imagination.
Winter always reinforces that, and I don't know if that's maybe like just a biological yearning for like eating food and hibernating and just like staying indoors and lifting. You know, like maybe that's biological, maybe that's personality, and I'm sure it's a bit of both. But yeah, like when it's snowing outside, I'm like, yeah, let's lift, and then let's just go check the mail. Just walk in the snow and just like there's something primal about it that I just
it's
enjoy,
super cool.
you know?
If you like, you guys were
Yeah.
trained and then just like walk outside, like it doesn't even bother you.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like it's teetering on hypothermia, assuming you don't warm yourself back up after you've cooled off. But also that's another thing that I love about winter, and we should really have like Olaf here to talk about this, and maybe we can do a whole episode on it. But like winter training, and you know you're more like breathing or cold therapy or just cold immersion like training, right? Wim Hof is the easiest name to throw out there, but he's not the only one, though he is the most notable and probably the most researched. But that sort of stuff you can't do in the summer, right? Like even in Colorado we have ice melt, so that you know the creeks are always cold relative to like a Florida lake. You know, they're always going to be cold in that, but even in the summertime they're like a refreshing cold because it's so hot out.
Yeah, no
And
gators.
you jump in, you're like, you're like, this is nice. But in the wintertime is where you have to like steel yourself to get in that water, and where you even have to break ice off the top. And I think, while that's not something that I would wake up and feel excited, in fact, every time I've done it, I've never been excited about doing it.
But you remember it.
But I remember it, and I appreciate that part of myself that's able to push through and do that. And I think that's a super cool opportunity that winter gives you. And that it's like, you can really like step yourself up. There's like this air in winter of it's like, everybody's inside, everybody's trapped away, you're left alone with yourself. Are you gonna come out a better person when the sun starts a longer arc, when Apollo's pulling his chariot on a different horizon? Are you gonna come out and Apollo's like, look at Travis, he's the same slob I left him in when we were doing the last
Worse,
segment."
because he's been eating Doritos.
Yeah,
Just sitting in his
or
house.
is he gonna, or is Apollo, or is Cool Ranch? That's Travis. Or are you gonna come out when the snow melts and be like, oh, I'm a better person than I was when the first snow fell? There's something about winter that just like pulls that out of me, and it's like, oh, now's the time to just like do cool stuff, learn cool stuff, become a cool person, do cool stuff, and then the summer I get to play all summer long because I've already put in all the work.
Yeah, I think that's a great attitude. I feel like I used to get that in the Midwest. Whenever it started, like when like fall would come, and it just made me want to like smoke meats and hang out by a campfire and like
right?
like anecdotal story. Like for one winter, for a period of time, do we have these farms out here in like always have ridiculous Iowa stories. So tell me if you can relate. Do you guys have these like farms out in Colorado where it's like it's a town that is like 100 years in the past or something like that? Like
I'm sure there's a couple on the like
swear there was
eastern
like
Colorado. But
I swear there's like a South Park on this or something where it was like you went to like the town where everybody was trying to play their parts of pretending they're like from 100 years ago, but then there were real things going on.
like an actual like a museum where everybody's acting to give you like a museum experience.
Yes, yeah,
Interactive
like interactive experience museum type thing.
There are actually. There's a
Yeah,
couple
Colin's
of
like,
them.
yeah, I used to
I went to one
volunteer.
in elementary school.
Okay, yeah, totally something you go to in elementary school. We had one of these in the town that I came from in Iowa, and my mom used to mom had critters, which I mean by like some horses or something like that, right? Like an emu, no emus or anything like that, but would stable them at this place and was paid to like put the critters there. So people, when the kids came out, they're like, look, this is a real stable with a horse in it, right? Like that kind of
And
thing.
it's an emu.
But it wasn't an emu. We didn't have the emu, but don't put it past that could be a thing.
Like we ran out of horses.
Well, we could, but they always had these conventions out there and stuff where people would have skins and crafts and things of you'd have this old candy store or something, and then you'd go in there and you'd get sarsaparilla and candies, and they'd all be set up like it was in the 1800s or something like that.
Okay.
But we stayed at one because they had that arrangement for like I think it was like a month or two, but like straight like kerosene, like no running water, like whatever, right? And I just remember that like winter would come, and you'd always have this urge to like go back to the village and like live for yourself, right?
Light a fire and.
I think it's like how everybody, especially like conservatives in like bigger cities, imagine Wyoming would be like or something like that. They're like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna move in the middle of nowhere, and then you get out there and you figure out, oh,
It's just windy.
it's just windy, and this really is the middle of nowhere, and this is probably why no one lives here.
Yeah. Well, what is it? 400,000 or something?
It's just under 500, yeah. It's like 450,
pretty low. A lot of wind.
but like
Not a lot of people.
Not a lot of people. And so that you get the calling, the winter calls that way.
Yeah, you know, and I definitely wouldn't want to like do that. No. But I do appreciate, like, you know, it's like when you're driving and you have your heat up in the winter and it's like hot in the car, and then you roll down your
Then
window
roll down your
and you get the
windows, yeah.
dichotomy of
Oh,
like the cold air
yes,
and the hot
man.
air from the inside. And you're just like,
Yeah,
it's that. It's like there's something about that winter just draws me to like.
Oh, you talk about that stuff, I just get the aroma of like kerosene in my. Yeah,
So
it's
weird.
It
That
is
road
weird.
is kind of weird.
But-
I just always want to go.
It's Westworld,
ski.
bro.
Yeah, skiing
Ooh.
is
You think you say it that way? It's a little more appealing. But skiing is
nothing
definitely
about Westworld was appealing.
Yeah, that's you jump in, you know, shoot some fake bullets and jump out. Very easy. I mean, not the Westworld,
Yeah,
where you
okay.
die, but
Oh, that's funny because they did do
Hey, don't
mock
spoilers.
civil wars. Like that was a common thing.
yeah,
Like
that's-
Civil War reenactments would take place, and now I
They're-
look at it, I'm
they're
like, that's kind of
huge.
messed up.
yeah.
Like, who was enrolling on the other side? I don't
Who's
understand.
enrolling on the other side? Everyone wanted to be on one side.
Right, it was pretty even, you know, for volunteers. It's concerning.
Yeah. Now we're delving into politics.
Yep.
But
But yeah, winter's always skiing for me. Like that's when I feel like parkour can take a little bit of a break because it's so difficult to train unless you're obviously in the gym all the time. But you can certainly improve skiing and snowboarding with parkour. There's you get that same thrill, and I almost think it's less impact as long as you're not hauling down the mountain. You can have a less impact because if you're on a good snow day, and you're being smart about it,
oh yeah.
you could also be, you know, monumentally more impact if you're going big. But you know, the way I ski, it's pretty relaxed, and I'm still doing a little bit of jumps. So
What was that?
Get that.
What was that kicker that we had named at
Oh,
Aspen?
man,
It was,
yeah.
we had two of them.
we always,
And-
whenever we go skiing, we always name the jumps that we find, and we just redo that line.
And then
over
yeah,
over
like
again.
well,
Nothing wrong with that.
you've been skiing with us, and we'll go again this winter. But yeah, like we're definitely we ski like we train. We find something we were like, I'm like, cool, that's what I want to do.
Over
And
and
I'm not
over,
about
yeah.
like, oh, I need to hit like a double black and really challenge myself
Yeah.
because I'm like this
Hurts.
doesn't seem fun. And I came here to have fun, and I paid a lot of money to have fun, and
Too much
almost
money.
dying isn't
Holy
so like.
cow.
But I think I
Yeah.
do remember one was called Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders, I do remember that kicker. Bernie Sanders was such a great kicker name.
I think we had another one that was.
We
just
could
like-
probably
it was like
put that
Kevin.
here. Like, it seemed like there could be a Bernie Sanders in the gym somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, there could be a jump named Bernie Sanders for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That would be great.
That Bernie Sanders is going to be the jump from the nest.
Oh, my goodness.
no
That's Bernie
way.
Sanders right there.
We have a pit alternative, and we have our.
Hey, don't spoil it.
That's why I said alternative.
Your spoiler alert
Yours?
today on the new
Dude,
gym location.
don't.
I'm trying to sneak it in there for him.
Okay.
And
I was. I
have a
already snuck it
studio,
in. It's
and
been
it's
snucked.
it's
Snooky.
and there is a potential jump off of our. I guess that would be 3 floors high at that point, huh?
He's
Wow.
wow.
Yes.
That's not.
Oh
That's
my
not. That's not a teaser. That's the whole thing.
It's a spoiler alert. You think it's 3 stories? I don't, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
maybe.
You're
That's like
standing on
that's
it,
like I've
three
got a
floors.
Christmas gift for you, and it's electronic. It's got a screen and a keyboard, and you know it's from your favorite brand.
It's a
Oh,
Macintosh
it's a
too. Yeah, you think it's a MacBook? Macintosh 2.
It's an Apple IIe.
Apple
bruh.
II. You like retro. There you go. Yeah, so I think those are it's just when the environment changes, you get this opportunity to shift your focus, and it's not like a culling would be the wrong word. It's like a yeah.
I like the term calling.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like you know, the Earth calls to you, and it's like I'm change too.
Yes. Yeah.
Like do something, right? It almost like when the seasons change, it encourages me to do something different, right? And also like I feel like I have to do strength training in the winter because when the snows are out there, I get more antsy. Even though like my time outside is actually probably pretty comparable in the winter as it is like in the summertime in terms of how much I'm just outside, right? Just my gear changes, but I get significantly more antsy, so it's super nice to be able to like wake up, do a workout in the morning, and then like train in the evening,
and you
and
get
do
that
like
energy
these
out.
kind of 2-a-days things. Yeah, because I get so antsy because it's just something about, you know, the Earth is just like do stuff.
Yeah, well, so as we bring it in that like that you say do the strength training. So we had that little rhetorical question on the coach thread, which was if there was like one exercise that you could do to control them all, and you just didn't have to do any other exercises. You were free. Your strength training was like met. Would you or wouldn't you do it?
Well,
or would you still train
it was a
and
little
do the
more
other thing?
slanted than that.
It was very slanted. I said something along the lines of if there was just one exercise and that was the only exercise you had to do, say like did I say back squats or something like that?
No, you didn't give it. You just said if there was one exercise you could do that met and maintained all of your like strength and power prerequisites.
But
Like-
only took you like 5 minutes to do or
Like
something like that.
would you do just that one exercise and then it was like
Alternative.
no, I'm a scrub and I like wasting time or something.
I don't think it was
I'm
that.
wasting time doing strength training. It was pretty bad. Pull it up.
Yeah, I mean, we can ask the question, but so that leaves you with and I was there. I don't think there was a wrong answer to that question, but I was trying to challenge that thinking because I think a lot of people they feel very like a lot of training is very obligatory, and if they don't do it, they're not living up to certain standards or they're not getting the work done. Just like when I was saying coming into summer, if I don't gain, or if I come into winter, if I don't gain weight, then spring will come and I'll lean out and I'll like disappear or something, or I just like missed my strength cycle opportunity, and facing that judgment to some degree, challenging that question like, would you even have to do it? Do you even have to do it? As far as like the train in that way that sometimes is not, we call it strength training, but I think what we may be dealing with is doing things that are work towards getting better that we wouldn't do otherwise if we didn't have to.
Some people like just get stuck in the mindset that they just need to do work just to do work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very archaic mindset of like, no, like this is just how it's always been done, and so this is how I have to do it. And that's definitely not. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was born challenging that mindset where people were like, do the thing, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, I'm definitely.
I pissed off a lot of people in school
Yup.
asking why. I was pretty rude about it too.
Yep. My daughter is currently going through that phase, which is generally I'm like, hey, she's like 9, so she's just figuring out like hygiene and stuff. And I'm like, you need to flush the toilet, even if you don't feel like it in the middle of the night. You need to flush the toilet. Why? Why?
That's funny. And Nova sounds.
Yeah, because he would do
that's a
that.
Nova
So there is a balance. Oh, so we have the question. What is the question?
is if there was one strength exercise that could be done once a week and you would never have to do another, would you train strength otherwise? Option 1.
People change my questions on this, by the way.
They did a little bit.
Try and get back to the original one if you can.
It was, yeah. There are 2 originals. The first one was, hell to the nah, I'd rather be moving. That was the answer he's trying to steer us towards.
Yeah, that was the rhetorical
The
answer.
secondary answer was, I prefer strength training as a means to avoid dealing with myself. But Cullen then added strategically, I prefer strength training as a way to bench press girls at house parties. So
This is uncharacteristic of Cullen, too.
Look, if you got a goal,
Yeah.
you do your goal. You know?
So that was the deal. We come into winter, and now I feel like people use winter is like homework still.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, here's the time to bring in my obligatory training I didn't get done for the year that I'm supposed to do. And so that was just my question is, whether you do choose to, let's just say, let me ask you, if there was just, let's just say there was one exercise, once a week exercise, and that was weighted back squat, back foot burpees, right? Let's just say that was it.
Okay.
And then that just did it, and you were done. It met all your power needs, it met all your strength needs, it met all your sort of like mechanistic training needs. Would you just do that, or would you continue to do what you do otherwise?
I think I'd always do that, but I'm an overreacher, so I'd always just do extra.
Mm-hmm.
There is like a bit of a time
That's an honest
requisite
answer.
that my strength, like training or power training, needs to meet. So if I go in and I finish my workout and in like 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, well I got at least 25 more minutes that I want to burn. 45 is kind of like that window that I like to hit. I feel satisfied at 45 minutes.
Belly full.
But I think most of that's an energy thing, right? Like I feel like I have to spend a certain amount of energy, and running is awful, especially in the winter, and I don't want to do cardio. So like, you could burn all that energy in 10 minutes if you wanted to do flat out sprints for 10 minutes and then die, but that's boring. So I don't do that. But yeah, I think I'd probably still do stuff.
I definitely probably do the minimal, as long as I knew that it was being effective. I think that's the hardest part.
We'll just assume that it is.
Yep.
It's 100% effective.
I think that's the hardest part, is trying to find a strength exercise that is, especially when it comes to parkour, where things seem so abstract, and it's pretty hard to figure out which strength exercises.
It's decline dumbbell
improve.
curls. Everybody knows that. That's the one.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to pinpoint specific parkour moves, especially like laches.
On a Bosu ball.
Now Travis changed his mind on that poll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would, but I would always do. Yeah, I would always do other stuff, because there are definitely some things that I do just like my warm ups that I do just because I enjoy doing those things, and sometimes I just do them while I'm watching Netflix, and I'm not planning on doing corks in my living room. So I would certainly do the bare minimum if I knew that would improve, and then I do all the extra fluff stuff that I knew didn't really improve skills as well, just because I enjoy not.
Yeah,
sitting
there is
still.
there's a strength training as a hobby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely a hobby for me, more so in the winter for sure.
But I like it. Like, that's the mindful mover.
Yeah, he
mindset,
definitely. Yeah, he's
which
the
is
minimum
like-
effective dose.
I do really love that, especially when it comes to things that are simple, like sprinting, and like, can you just sprint as hard as you can, and can you see a broad range of benefits just from doing that one?
Yeah, because
simple
his
exercise.
experiment is sprint as hard as you can.
Uphill, right?
Yeah, this is Phil Chubb, mindful mover on Instagram. It's fine. Like, where there's enough resistance that it's really manageable. It still stays under a minute or whatever. And you basically just sprint. He's been sprinting once every 10-ish days. But this is the value of like trying hard, and I feel like that's something that's learned, right? It's kind of like the grit fitness thing, but I think it's more it's different and
mature.
better and more mature, because the ability to try so hard and so long. Are we in a Linkin Park song? Anyway,
You were
So-
getting close.
I talk real fast, then I rap a little here, right? And now I scream. That's the joke today. There, now it's a Linkin Park song. Is that ability is something we admire and is really cool. And if you could try so
Rest
hard
in
at
peace.
something, and then what if like the real measure is what is it like work? We thought it was like work, right? As being the measure of training is like, if you can get this much work done in a certain amount of time, your work capacity is a really important lever or measure. What if just like ability to try hard was really what mattered? Like
Effort.
Yeah, effort. If your
Effort over
effort and
time.
your ability to try hard. No, what if it could even be consolidated like we all have abilities, because I believe this, we probably, everybody's different within 1 minute or even 20 seconds how hard they can try. And if that hard could be measured, could 20 seconds of trying like exponentially like more difficult levels of effort and things versus someone, because that's true, right? You take someone who's a novice or a beginner and you come in and like you've got 10 seconds to try hard at parkour versus someone who is like a experienced and accomplished parkour athlete, the amount of output that's going to come from 10 seconds of trying hard, like the level of hard, can't be reached by the beginner person. There's just no way. They would just sort of like...
Yeah.
We could test that on an apples to apples. You take one of those dog shock collars, you put the prongs
goodness.
in your palm like that, and then you just see who can hold on to it the longest.
But that could be a
For
skill
10
too.
seconds.
But I agree, you're right. There is an element that's being tested there, which is like trying hard.
How hard are you gonna try?
Right. I still
I mean,
think
we
that's
did that.
cool.
I'm
So
just
it's
thinking about
dog
this in
collar.
Cyberpunk 2077, and that's my skill attribute is try hard.
is try hard.
Justin's
That's
try
a
hard.
that's a skill tree that you're gonna
99.
trade into.
Yes. Yeah, there you go.
But I like
Your
that. Like it
constitution.
just sounds like it's just like you could just do one vertical jump, and it takes you 2 seconds, but your strength training is done for a month. Like
Right.
I totally do
That sort of thing. I don't think that's the end all, but I think that there is an underappreciated aspect of that approach, assuming you don't injure yourself out, because that's usually what we're trying to stop people from doing, is new people or people who are fatigued from trying so hard they injure themselves out of whatever it is they're doing. But I think that, if you jump fresh in that way, right, if you jump there, but just this idea that and I've trained this way before too, because when I was doing some other sprint training, we would do like sets of 15, and that's all we were going to do. We were going to try really hard at 15.
15 sprints?
Yeah, 15 sprints, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sucked.
That was way too much
That
volume.
was way too much, right? Well, I think, yeah, you're right. In my opinion, it's too much.
'cause after like sprint number 6,
Yeah.
you're just jogging.
We were following like the New England Patriots like camp training programming or something like that.
Oh my lord.
Yeah.
There's too much cardio there.
Yeah, you're telling me. I'm not. That's why I did it once in like 2012. I'm
Like,
not doing it again.
And the
But it-
Patriots also like do a lot more running.
Yeah, they're a fast team.
Yeah. So anyway, there was that, but then the idea here that's being tested by the mindful mover was just like, if you just run once, but you run until you drop, like in a fight, right? You go until you just like,
In
just
winter, that's
pant.
just
Right, exactly. Like, is that enough cardio for 10 days, right? And that's what he's testing and seeing some improvements. But I don't know, for what we do, for that, something like that might be enough, right?
Well, I think a lot of that matters. Like if you're a sprinter, that's not gonna do anything for you. Once a week will result in probably losses for you, right?
Only running once a week, right?
Yeah. Right? And
If
so
you're
I think it
specialized.
works for the mindful mover because he doesn't do sprints
Right.
as a part of his just normal athletic
Yeah.
pursuits. So he's introducing stimulus at a rate that's faster than atrophy can occur, so naturally you're gonna see improvement.
Right.
Right? That's not I
could
question
see
the
that.
scientific validity of that test because it's a bit like the novice effect. If I just introduce something new to you, you're going to improve very quickly at it, regardless of what it is, just because it's a new stimulus, right?
So I
But
think in
once
his,
you,
you'd
once
have
you
to.
hit a threshold, it's going to stop becoming effective. So maybe that's what he's testing is like at what threshold does this stop becoming effective? But
There could be, so you'd have to look at, he has like he's transparent about that, but there is his entire like channel is very focused on essentially challenging those norms or making these broad and outrageous claims, trying to test them and seeing if there's any truth or validity to them. And sometimes there is, but naturally because we're biased and in our prior experiences, we meet a lot of resistance. So there's plenty of people on like the comments that he's going back and forth with similar thoughts about that, right? But I think
that's a fact.
I would
introduce something new.
Yeah,
Somebody sprinting
Right,
who doesn't
but-
otherwise sprint, and they'll improve the sprint.
that's right. So I think he benchmarks prior sprint training when he was doing a lot of volume in contrast to this. So I think that's one example. But I would think in general, especially with parkour athletes, and especially even with our coaches and athletes who train here, we just never run anywhere. And there was always this argument in CrossFit when I was training CrossFit. There was always this sort of like, do we even need, if we do Metcon, like, right, if you do a Metcon workout, a metabolic conditioning workout, and you do, a 12-minute, like, series of exercises, and it's done at high intensity, do you even need to run anywhere? Like, for health purposes, do you even just, to be a healthy human being, do you need to run anywhere? And I would argue that a lot of people who train parkour, or maybe you just do like a class a week of parkour and using it more exploratory, but are on the scene, like their basic cardiovascular performance, right, is probably subpar. And then what would they need to do? Sprinting is a perfect example. What would they need to do just to make sure they were at like that, okay, you cleared the marker, right? This basic benchmark of, if I ask you to run from here and there, it wouldn't mean 5 days of recovery for you and you pass out, 20 seconds into the run, right? Like there's definitely what amount of bare minimum could be met with that. And I think something like a sprint, potentially based off what I'm seeing from his results, is that every 10 days running try hard up a hill might be all the like sort of effective cardio that you would need if your primary training is, explosive power parkour or even speed courses that only go 20 seconds, right? Like there's something there you probably still have to, it's like there's some degree of like movement hygiene that probably exists at that level. Just like if someone's like, no, I'm just not going to squat because I'm a dancer and I only do top rock, right?
Here's a counter to that. What about just holding your breath or doing dynamic breath holds?
Yeah, so
holding your breath and doing air squats may actually be just as effective at inducing cardiovascular response as sprinting uphill, except you don't have to go anywhere.
Right. As long as you did that, I think until you try hard passed out, maybe there would be. You're saying just hold your breath and
do air squats.
And do air squats.
Yeah.
So you hold your breath to what, just to reduce the oxygen, and then.
Well, yeah, you're turning what would be an anaerobic exercise into an anaerobic one because there's no intake of oxygen, right?
Okay, and then so you would
which sprints are anaerobic, right? It's a high output. So I'm just saying that.
But that's just
there's a potential counter there, that like, well, if you're looking for your absolute minimum dosage of cardiovascular response, you just hold your breath.
100-meter broad jump.
Breath hold?
I think you die at about like 30 meters, but
yeah. So you're saying just hold your breath. But that
or hold your breath in the sprint. Yeah,
that's fine too. Yeah, or why not just hold your breath in the sprint and run?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's something to be experimented with. I mean, you just need something measurable to show change over time, benchmarked against another way of training, right?
Yeah.
To see if it worked. But the bottom line is, like, we would already. I think that meeting resistance with this, in theory, like as you respond. We already sort of agree, I think all of us here probably agree that there's some degree of validity with this, with back squats and their variations, right?
Yeah.
Like we know we don't need 100 different variations of squats to get what we would get out of a very amazing back squat or potentially split squat.
You get 85% of
right.
what you need from a front squat.
Right, and I think that's what this experiment's doing, but the question then, if the intent was, could we just hold our breath and basically do standing squats until we saw SARS and passed out or whatever, would that be an equivalent? Could you move then from there? I don't know.
I like the theory.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
The idea is basically just like what, for me, something like this, when it came to like laches or some sort of, so you have to think of like a movement, whether maybe it's a modality in which you're moving, where the thing you can do to ensure the greatest amount of success with a little bit of effort is very good, right? Like, for example, if there was an exercise, no one would continue to do, I don't know, what would be the overhead equivalent of this, if we knew that there was one exercise you could do once every 10 days that would increase your lache potential by 50%, right? Something ridiculous like that. Or at least bring it to what...
I mean, really just maintain. I feel like that's more...
like maintenance
easier,
is more important.
Yeah, easier concept to handle. Because doing the same thing, expecting it to improve, is obviously not. I don't think anyone's expecting that to work. So, but to keep yourself at a level
where
just one
strong.
exercise as few as possible, that makes sense to me. But not improving and making gains off something, that seems a little harder.
But I know that for a fact that if I just train, strides and precisions, and I do no strength work, like no squats, that I move towards the direction of injury. If I just do the movement,
Well, depending on your volume,
I just move. Yeah, I mean, when the volume continues to increase on the performance side, with no maintenance in there, I do feel less strong. The bottom of my positions are weaker, and I feel like in general like my recovery is poorer. but doing squats does make me feel stronger overall and improves performance. It's just what amount of that do we have to do, right? I think
To get that, yeah.
Right.
That's right. Well, I guess we all get to do our individual experiments this winter. Justin gets to do his longer warm-ups.
You're gonna dance.
Travis gets to sprint uphill.
I didn't say I was gonna do
Oh,
that.
the sprinting one I'm gonna try. Well, no, actually, I might try my 100-meter broad jump now. It kind of sounds
With
like
the breath hold or without the breath hold?
We'll try it. I think I could probably get 3 broad jumps before I have to breathe. There's
I
no
feel like
way
that
could
one's
do
going
it.
to be tough because there's so much like expansion
yeah.
and compression in the midline that like you're going to go, oh dang it, I breathed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Especially-
instead of doing the breath holds, because I don't want you like going a
Because they
popsicle
pass
on me.
out in the snow like that, and people are just like,
He worked so hard. Worked so hard. Yeah.
But maybe it's you time your breathing. So it's like intake on the way down, and then you do your next broad jump, exhale, intake in the air.
I think I feel like if I were really being safe, I'd just do a plyo, 2 broad jumps with breath hold, maybe 3 if that felt easy.
So why the broad jump and why even the squat as opposed to just sprinting? Just out of curiosity.
I think
Like, why is that appealing?
there's more try hard in the broad jump. I feel like
Oh.
for less distance. Like I feel like I have to sprint a full 100 meter to get to really feel a sprint. But you can broad jump or plyo 3 times in a row, and
And you're already
pretty hefty,
fatiguing.
yeah.
But it's just gonna turn into these little bunny hops and then a crawl.
Crawl
Right.
and then a slide.
Right.
Yeah, although I've done lots of sprinting before. Like I'm doing track, and earlier when we were living with Jesse, I did sprints.
But that would be better than because
so-
then you probably have those numbers still, right?
Yeah. So,
Are
but
you faster
I
than
haven't tried broad jumps.
Right, but I'm saying that you
No,
could
I'm
go
not
try
master.
this method and measure it against your old numbers. And if it's better than your old numbers, and all you had to do was 3 times a month run once,
Yeah.
like if that turned out to be the case, why would you definitely want to? You may be the best candidate because you have the prior numbers. I don't have the prior numbers on mine.
Yeah, I'll probably try it. The sprint uphill.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds fun enough to try at least once.
Yeah. So is it?
But I don't know if I'm gonna get it in winter. So.
Oh, dude, there's plenty of days where it's like 60, 70 degrees here. You could wait.
Yeah, you
With a
don't-
10-day
you almost
dress
have to have
cycle,
it
you
10
could
days,
wait.
there's bound to be one of them.
Yeah.
True. I almost have to do it barefoot though. I feel like sprinting.
Why do you have to make this more painful?
Don't add more.
Sir.
Now you're
Exactly.
adding more
I
variables.
need cleats to
More
go
variable.
in winter and grass for
No,
sure.
you're gonna
uphill,
dude.
Oh, in winter, yeah, it's
you
gonna be
can't
wet.
do. You can
It's Colorado. It's gonna stay dry and boring for another.
Okay, yeah, I'll find the one south-facing hill. That's long
Ideally,
enough.
you go back to
In
where you were
friggin'
training
Fort
before.
Collins.
Ideally, you go back. Well, that's just the Rocky Mountains. You could just start at the bottom of the Front Range and run straight up and see if you can make it to Aspen. No, where'd you run before?
Oh, I was on a track, CSU.
So we had
Weird.
to break onto the CSU track. And
But the CSU
You don't
track
need to break on it.
is
You
no
just
longer
open
public.
the gate.
The CSU one's no longer public.
It's public. I can assure you.
Dude, if we
Based
go
on the
over there-
property taxes that we pay.
that should be. I'll go over
It's
there
not-
with you.
I'm-
And if they're like,
dude,
it's public,
I go on there all the
Mm.
time. I've never been kicked off ever since it became private. I'm like,
Private.
whatever. You're
Yeah.
in my city. This is public.
Just if you go in there with a tank top, you'll look athletic and people won't stop.
Dude, just put on some
colors.
green. Just
Yeah.
put on
green
some
tank
green.
top
You'd be
for
like,
the
with a
school
number.
with a number on it.
To be like, that boy's way too short to be a track athlete.
Just be like, I'm shot put.
Yeah. There you go.
You're the shot put, or you
Yeah.
shot put?
Let's get all right. Well, let's do some tests this week.
Yeah.
See if we can get some experiments in and report back.
All right.
For sure.
All right, you guys.
Do it.
Can I close? Or-
Yeah.
All right, you guys. So listen to us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or find the RSS and put it in your podcast feeder. See our faces on YouTube and hear our pretty voices on the other channels. We will see you next week on the Outrun Show with more exciting topics. Wiki wiki wee wee.